oh dear, I did not do my research here. Like you've gone all in, you were so passionate about the thing, and then you realize there's just no demand for what you're trying to sell. Today, Lewis and I are going to be discussing a topic that could literally save you thousands on your dropshipping journey. We're talking about the top 5 mistakes that new dropshippers make. Mistakes that can derail your progress and hit your wallet hard. Yeah, absolutely, James. These mistakes are more common than you might think. But the good news is that with the right approach, they're totally avoidable. So let's jump in and make sure our listeners are set up for success. The goal for this episode is to highlight how making even small adjustments can have a huge impact on your success in dropshipping. So it's about turning those small tweaks into big wins, something that we help our community do every day. That's right. Sometimes it's just a small tweak in one direction, but it saves you from lots of headaches and lots of pounds and dollars wasted. So a mistake that we see all too often is one that you really highlighted for me because you love using the term dabbling. So it's something we see all too often, as I say, it's people that are dabbling in dropshipping without fully committing to it. So why do you think this is such a costly mistake? Well, it's something that I think once you've made the change to go from dabbling to committing, you can only really look back on with hindsight and realize the transformation that occurred in that time. I think the easiest way to visualize this, if you're at that early stage and you've not yet fully committed, is that if you treat your business like a side hobby, then that's all it will ever be. It will become this self-fulfilling prophecy. It will remain capped at whatever earning that your comfortable a side hustle could bring you. However, when you go all in and it becomes your main business, you give yourself the best shot at success, but also you've removed all of the other excuses. And so because this is your sole focus, you build it up to what you believe your sole focus could earn you. And so when I first started, I think there was a person I spoke with where this became very clear for me. And I was hesitant about putting all my time into something initially because I was very early into the journey, had just learned about dropshipping, wasn't sure, saw all the bad press about low quality products from China and the traditional model. And so wasn't really sure. And I remember I'd started to kind of dabble probably with this like high ticket approach of selling higher priced, higher value items from UK suppliers. And I was just testing the water, seeing how it was going. And we used to rent out a room in our Airbnb in our apartment in London. So we used to have a spare room and we used to have like guests come and stay from time to time. It was quite an interesting way of meeting people who were, traveling around the world. And we had one lady who was there I think she was from America, and she worked as like a PR agent for business owners. So interesting person, had her own business, was very successful. And I was telling her about my side business and my e-commerce business. And I was saying, I'm still working in a job, but I run this business like evenings and weekends. And I felt like I was juggling so much. I remember telling her at the time, I feel like I've got so many plates spinning. And I remember her saying, the day that you go all in on it and you leave your job and you commit to this is the day that you'll free up so much headspace that you'll realize was capped before. And your focus and attention can all go towards one thing and you'll break through and you won't believe what's possible at that stage. And I didn't really understand it when she said it because I thought, well, I'm giving it all my attention I can in the evenings and weekends that I can dedicate to it. But what about all those hours in the daytime that I wasn't? And it was very true. When I look back now, the moment that I left my job, although the business was already up and running, it was generating sales, I'd probably replaced my income already. It was really when it took off in terms of like where I could just pour all my time and energy into it. And I've seen that many of our members at Dropship Unlocked see this same transformation. We see posts in our community where someone will say, today's the day I leave my job because I've replaced my income and now I'm making that switch, that pivot where this now becomes their full-time thing. And at that point, that's when we start to see their results really ramp up because they're all in. They've dived in the pool. Now it's time to swim. And so I think diving in too early can be a mistake. Diving in before you can swim, i.e. quitting your job, but before you have replaced your income is possibly a bit of a dangerous game to play. Some people like the pressure of lighting the fire. It does, however, in my opinion, force you to make quite short-term decisions sometimes. But I know that when I first started, one of my early mistakes was thinking that I could dabble my way through to the type of success I wanted to see with this business in the long term. And it wasn't until I shifted my focus and decided that, no, this was going to be my business. Like this was it. This was going to be my main focus, my main source of income.
that's when I think I changed from thinking, now I wonder if I could do it, to believing that it's possible, because now I have to make it work. And that's when the progress really started. And so it's like working out once a week, and expecting to see results. Without commitment, the progress is going to be painfully slow, if any at all. So when you're not fully committed, you miss out on these growth opportunities. And I think it all comes down to the simple phrase of you get what you put in, right? Commitment and consistency are going to be crucial for growth, whether it's in business or any skill, right?
Exactly, yeah. The more you put in, the more you get out. And if you treat it like a hobby, you'll be paid like a hobby. If you treat it like a business, you'll be paid like a business. I think the mindset around dabbling comes from trying to avoid risk and trying to protect yourself. Just thinking, I'll just give it a go. I won't go all in, because if it doesn't work, then I'm protecting myself, and I've not given too much time and effort and thought into it and money into it. But what happens is actually it's more of a risky option to dabble, because it's very rare when I hear people talk about, I'm going to get started, but I'm going to see if it works or not. It's very rare that those people actually succeed. So if you're going to be dabbling, as I discovered myself when I first dabbled, it was very, very difficult to see success if you're just seeing if it would work, or if you just had faith, or you just hoped that it was going to work and work out if I just put in half an hour here, half an hour there. But eventually that's never going to lead to success. And so that's a more risky strategy to take. If you've identified something that fits your ideal lifestyle and you really want to give something a go, then that's when you go all in and you commit. And then that's when you see success. So it's a less risky strategy, I believe. But it's that protection that we want to put up ahead of ourselves. We want to put a barrier in front of ourselves before we get started, because we're always thinking of protecting the downside. But it just holds you back. I mean, the obvious story that I remember always comes up when I think about dabbling and not going for it is the idea of burning the ships. So when the Spanish fleet commander landed on an island and he turned around and told all his troops to burn the ships behind them, so they had no option to carry on and invade that territory. They had no option to turn back. Inevitably, they would win that war and they would take that territory because they gave themselves no other option. And there's something very successful about that mindset. And it's the mindset that I had to take as well. Once I realized it was dropshipping that was going to be my route to financial freedom, then I set up a limited company, business bank account. I put my time and effort into it on weekends, on evenings, and I knew it was going to be my way to success. But I had to have that moment, which can just be done in a moment, where I decided that this is going to be my route and it was going to take it seriously. And then the results were so different compared to when I was dabbling with Chinese products from Facebook ads before. The next big mistake that we see a lot of people make, Lewis, is choosing the products that they're going to be selling based on emotion or a hunch rather than actual data. What's the danger here then for people if they're just choosing products to sell based on emotion?
Yeah, the thing to remember is just because you love a product doesn't mean that the market does. So we have to separate our own biases, our own preconceptions, our own assumptions from the facts. And it's a hard thing to do, because the nature of an assumption and a bias is that they're kind of internally hidden within our minds. They're not something that we can immediately point to and say, oh, I have a bias towards this, because the nature of the bias is it's kind of is under the radar. So just because you love a product and you think, hey, this would be really popular, I love these, therefore there must be a huge market for them. Could be that it's quite, could be that it's too niche. And equally, just saying like, I think this is going to be huge, but having nothing else other than a gut feeling to base that upon, to me, it's too much of a risk to pin my family's livelihood to. I want to know that there is stable, proven, consistent demand. It's a bit like, imagine you're a chef and you're like, right, I'm going to prepare this unbelievable feast, this huge banquet. I'm going to get the barbecue grill out and create all these like nice racks of ribs and steaks and all of this great stuff. And you show up to the party and they're like, oh, it's a vegan party. And you're like, oh dear, I did not do my research here. Like you've gone all in. You were so passionate about the thing. And then you realize there's just no demand for what you're trying to sell, right? It doesn't matter if it's your favorite. If the audience and the market doesn't want it, doesn't matter. You're not going to sell anything. So market research to me is non-negotiable. Like I start with the data, start with the research, and later I can overlay emotion on it once I have proven concepts that I say, yeah, that stacks up from a data standpoint, but so do these other 4 options. Which one do I like? Which one? Because there is a place for gut feeling in business. I'm not saying you have to just be like a rational robot and do nothing but make rational decisions. Sometimes it's quite nice to say, no, but I really feel that would be good, and I'd lean into that and I'd be good. Sometimes that inner voice is worth listening to, but don't let it be the dominant voice that guides you down a rabbit hole that takes you 2 years to discover that it's a non-starter in the first place. Decisions need to be backed by data, not just feelings. The most successful dropshippers that we see time and time again come through our program, they follow the data. They follow the 9-step validation criteria that we have, ensuring that there's proven demand before they invest. And by the way, market demand is just one of the steps that we validate a market on. So we've done episodes in the past where we talk about all of the other steps for niche selection. That's a whole separate episode. But yeah, market demand is really figuring out how many people are there at the barbecue that are going to want to eat the type of food that I'm going to make, or what do the people at the barbecue want? Now let me base the food I'm going to create around that. So think of it as well like maybe investing in the stock market. You're thinking, right, I'm going to invest. You wouldn't just go and put your money into a company's stock just because you like their logo. That's the level of like superficial decision we're talking about here. You say, I've got a good feeling because I like their yellow and blue logo. It's like, at least look at the numbers if you're going to do that. At least look at what's their track record, like what's the news articles related to that company. Like do some some deeper level research and try and figure out if there's anything more to it. So just a couple of examples there, but that's why it can be dangerous. Yeah, hopefully that drives the point home.